everyone, I'm Melissa from Knitting the Stash, and this is episode 29 in the podcast series. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'll have to check later because right now I'm wrestling a puppy. This is, you guys remember Tinks. Say hi, Tinks. Hi, Tinks. She is almost down for nap time, and she's doing a little puppy mouthy before nap time kind of thing, and she's sitting with me on the floor here, so we'll see how this goes. I think it'll work out, don't you, Tink? Yeah, because you're falling asleep right now. Anyway, this is episode 29, I think, and it's a little bit of a end of the year mishmash, so, or end of the year mashup. So we got a little bit of everything. Got Tink. We've got, I've got a bag that my son sewed, some of his first sewing project that I think is really awesome, and I thought you guys would really appreciate. I've got some news on Spencer's sweater. And I received some yarn from Jennifer of Wild Lily Artisan Fibers as a little holiday treat, and I thought I'd share it with you guys. And then what else is going on? Somebody actually wrote in to ask a question about sweater short rows for the back, so I thought I'd spend a minute to talk about that. And then we have a giveaway extravaganza. So we've got 3 giveaways that are either in process or on tap for January, so I'll talk about those at the end. And Tink has kind of settled down. She's realized that our whole house is kind of like a big stick. She loves sticks. She loves being outside. And so if you see her chewing on the wall, maybe yell at the camera or yell at your screen so that I'll know. I'll try to stop her. We'll see how this goes. You can find me just about everywhere as Knitting the Stash on Instagram and Ravelry, and on YouTube obviously, and on the blog, which is knittingthestash.wordpress.com. I think she needs a little like before bed chewy is what she needs. Oh, I know it. You need to go to sleep, honey. I know it. Okay, so we'll get started. First thing I wanted to show you guys is some creative awesomeness from my son, and I just can't even tell you how excited I am about this. I told you guys last episode that he was downstairs getting sewing lessons from Spencer, and he's really just taken to it. He's totally into like high fashion and all kinds of fashion, really, like any kind of fashion. He checks it out on Instagram. He is always reading about it and telling us about it. Come on back. Come on back. There you go. And he just has taken to working on it by himself. Like, he got a sketchbook for Christmas and a sewing kit, and he has just been going gangbusters. So, okay, what I've got in this bag is my beautiful Turkish spindle and some fiber, right? But check this out. So he sewed up an awesome bag out of one of his old t-shirts, and he left the pocket kind of intact there on the edge, and he used the button band of the shirt to make the clasp closure. So it totally works. You can totally button it closed. I'll just do it here so you can see it. And see that? That's so cool. And then he did this cool zigzag stitch along the back to close up the t-shirt. And I love it. It's like a Zach original. And I think it's the coolest thing in the world that he sewed a bag out of his old shirt and gave it to me. I'm like, I feel like the recipient of like his first total crafting project, and I'm super psyched about it. So I immediately put my drop spindle in there and have been traveling around with it ever since. And it just makes me really happy to look at. I thought you guys would appreciate that he has been crafting away, just like me and Spencer, I suppose. So that always makes me happy. So that is the first thing I wanted to share with you guys. The second thing is, of course, some knitting whips. And I'll show you the whip that I plan to get going on first, because there's a little less to say about it because it doesn't exist yet. So this is a funky sock blank from Megan Morell of Old Crow Art Yarns, and I think you can see it in its full glory here. It was from a themed box, and it was from Jaws. So as you can imagine, it's like beautiful blue ocean, everything's peaceful. Ah, the sharks are coming, right? Perfect. So Zach actually said to me, out of the blue, "Hey Mom, could I have some socks? Could you make me some socks?" He like never asks for anything that I've knit before. He's not into sweaters. He doesn't want to, has never really, I've made him a couple pairs of socks, but they never really caught on, but he was like, I want some socks, Mom. I was like, sure, let's go pick out some sock yarn. So he picked this out. Megan, if you're watching, of course you know he would pick something like this. It's perfect, right? So since it's a sock blank, it's a single-stranded sock blank, what I'm gonna do is make one sock in the Peaceful Blue Ocean Way colorway and one sock in the Crazy Shark Attack colorway. So it'll be really cool. He'll have like 2 legs that are kind of like this, like one that's blue and one that's red. And I talked to him about that, and he said that was way okay with him. So I'm pretty excited to get that started. Haven't had a whole lot of time in between all the crazy holidays and travel and everything else, but it's next on the list. And I actually have a week or so off before the semester begins, and that I have declared to be my time. As you guys know, last semester was insane, and I was teaching 3 classes back to back, no lunch, you know, just like what, I'm not sure what possessed me, but it wasn't really a good idea. So never again. And I plan to take the next week to just knit and try to relax a little bit after all the holiday mayhem and everything else. So there you go. I'm guessing that the socks will get started at that point, especially if little Tinky cooperates. And she's back here gnawing on her bone. You can probably hear that in the background, and that's really gross, and I'm sorry about that. But she's really enjoying herself. The other work in progress, you guys have heard a lot about this through the episodes, is this, you know, you saw Spencer's back of sweater. This is the Denali sweater by Nora Gone, Cable Queen, right? So I don't have my mannequin form here because I'm coming to you from New York, and so we're gonna ad-lib as usual. This is the back of the sweater, which you saw in the last episode, and if you want to hear more about the back of the sweater, you can go to episode 28 and check that out. I think it was episode 28. Like I said, I'll have to check that at some point. And then I've been working on the front of the sweater, and it's upside down and backwards. This is the front of the sweater, and you can see this is where the collar of the sweater will go, and the sleeves, and all the way down to the ribbing. Yay! I think it would fit me right now in its unwashed state. So one of the reasons I wanted to show you guys this before I washed it is to show you what happens to the Snaildon yarns that I'm using. This is the Faroe Islands yarn. They're kind of in the grease, well, very rustic kind of yarn, and they're kind of, it feels like a very hard wearing yarn when you first kind of touch it and work with it. Tink, that is really kind of gross. And once you wash it, it just, this is the washed version, it just plumps right up. It is a 5-ply, I believe. I think it's a 5-ply, yeah. So if more plies you use, the better off your cables look. So that one of the cool reasons to use this yarn is that it really makes plump cables, as you can see. But I wanted to show you the washed versus unwashed. So these were both made heavily modified as usual with me, right? But they were both made so that they would match up basically and be about the same size, right? But if you look at this, this is the unwashed piece in the front, this is the washed piece in the back. You can see that there's about a 4 to 5 inch difference in blocking between these two. So this is like my PSA to you, like, block your knits, it matters, it can really make a difference. So when I first finished the back, it looked a lot like the front. It was kind of compacted, squishy. I mean, look at those plump cables though. That is just like, oh, and it feels just like extra soft quilted goodness. It's wonderful. But it needs to be blocked, and it needs to be blocked out to the proper measurements, which will make it 4 or 5 inches wider, and it will make it actually fit Spencer's torso better. Because when I put this on him right now, it looks like I made a sweater for me and tried to put it on Spencer. As you can see, it really does almost fit my dimensions like this, and once it's blocked, it will look a lot more like the back, which looks like huge on me. So that's your PSA to wash and block your knitwear, especially cables, because they just tend to crimp up on themselves pretty well. But I'll give you one more shot here of these gorgeous gorgeous cables. Oh my god. I wish you could just reach out and touch them because they're really awesome. So what's happening with the sweater now that both panels are done? Well, because I heavily modified everything, and the whole thing is meant to be a seamed project, everything I did for these arm holes and the sloped shoulder bind off and all that kind of stuff needs to be equally modified when I make the sleeves. And the sleeves are meant to be made flat and set in, and I don't think I'm doing that because this was some complicated modification, and I don't, even though I kept notes for myself, I'm not positive that it would actually look good in the end if I did a set-in sleeve because of the modifications I did. So what I'm gonna do, this sweater has saddle shoulders, so the set-in sleeves are supposed to be made flat, and then you make the sleeve cap, and then it has a little band that goes up past the sleeve cap that ends up going across the back of this sweater. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna manufacture that band across the back of the sweater, which helps to raise the back up and give the back a little bit more room than the front so that you won't get that choking effect, I'll talk about short rows in a minute, because this isn't short rows, this is a different kind of technique. So I'm gonna make that band, and I'm gonna graft that onto the back of the sweater, and then I'm gonna sew these pieces together, the front and back, so that it's basically a vest, minus the collar and the sleeves. And then I'm going to do what I love to do with sweaters, which is pick up stitches around the armhole and knit the sleeve downward. That's my plan. I keep going back and forth though, because I started knitting the sleeve in the flat, and it's kind of okay. But I keep thinking to myself, ugh, I'm not a big fan of seaming up. Great sweater to pick then, right? I'm not a big fan of seaming up, and I'm especially not a big fan of seaming up things that really didn't ever need to be seamed up anyway. So for example, these, like a sleeve, you could just knit it in the round. There are structural reasons to use seams in a sweater like this, especially because it is so heavy. I mean, you can probably see, that is a big sweater. That's the body of the sweater without the sleeves even. So structurally, it's good to have the front and back in panels because when I sew them together on the shoulders, they'll have something to kind of hang together. The sides will add some structure to them. Even the sleeves will. So I'm going back and forth. I think I may knit that weird back saddle panel and try it out, and if it's looking wonky, I won't do it. In the meantime, I might be knitting up one sleeve one way and one the other. I just don't know. You know what I need you guys to do? If you want to leave a comment and let me know what you think about set-in sleeves versus sleeves in the round from the top down, I'd love to have any advice that you have about this. What I don't want is to end up with a beautiful sweater that is has screwed up seaming. It's like bunchy, and I know I can be really successful if I pick up stitches and knit down. Done that so many times. I can do sleeve caps on my sleeve, short rows, blah blah blah. It's just a matter of actually doing it. So let me know what you think. Okay, so that's Spencer's sweater. It's on its way, and I will have, hopefully by the next podcast it'll be done. We have been in super cold weather here, like teens, then single digits, then 0. It's like Arctic blast, and so talk about a bad time of year to have a puppy who needs to go outside and exercise a lot. I'm petting the puppy right now. You can't really see her in the camera. She's chewing on her bone. There she is. I've just totally disturbed the happiness that she was having. So I've been wearing my wool sweaters out, and that has made all the difference, and I wish this one were done for Spencer so that he could wear it out, because having that wool layer is just, there's nothing that compares to it. Not even down compares to it. It's just like amazing. So I would like to get that done. It'll probably be done by the time it's 30 degrees and sunny out. I mean, you can still wear a wool sweater then, but it's not quite as good as when it's 0 degrees. So yeah. Okay, moving on. So I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about Jennifer Guyer's new yarns. And I've talked on this podcast a lot about, sorry for all the scruffing. I've talked a lot on this podcast about Jennifer Guyor and Wild Lily Artisan Fibers and Annaroon Sheep Company, where she was working as a wool sorter. I think she's still working with them, but they've moved their operations from Colorado out to Idaho. Amazing sheep company, by the way, Annaroon Sheep Company. If you can get a fleece from them, you should do it because they have beautiful fleece. Okay, so Jennifer Guyor is an awesome maker, and she and I actually met in a spin and send group. This is the tag for her latest yarn. She and I met in a spin and send group, oh my gosh, like 3 years ago now, maybe? And we've stayed in touch. We both spun some yarn up and sent it to each other. And she sent me this beautiful skein of just kind of like everything in the kitchen sink and these beautiful colors just all blended together. And I have it in my hand spun bin, and I just can't bring myself to make anything with it because it's so pretty. And then we've met up in Colorado a couple times. She invited us out to Annaroon's sheep company, and we went out there and shot a great video. Spencer shot a great video about her fleece sorting process, and we just had fun. We had lunch and hung out, and we've just been like seeing each other a lot over the years, and it's really nice for makers to meet up, I think. So this holiday, Jennifer sent me a beautiful pack of yarn, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So she's made, this is the third run, I believe, and back on the Annaroon Sheep episode, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes, I talked about her second yarn batch, which I have also sitting in my bin at home. Hey Tinkers, are you done? He's still gonna chew. And that was a different blend. It was a really beautiful blend. This yarn that she sent is the natural, and she's calling this a sport weight yarn. About 300 yards for each skein of the natural and 100 yards for each of the color skeins in color. And this blend is, hey Tinkers, what you doing? This blend is CVM Shetland, BFL, Blueface Leicester, and Gotland. And you can totally see that in the yarn. It is really, really soft because of the CVM and the Shetland, but it's, I'm gonna get a little wild here, but it's also really, really full of luster because of these longer staple length breeds like the BFL and the Gotland. And this is the natural color, and it is gorgeous. And then she sent a few different colors that she has been working on. You can see, look at the saturation there. That's how you can tell there's like some long wool in there. If silk would produce a lustrous fiber as well, but the long wools definitely do this. And you can see the light just shining off those fibers. It's because the long wools don't have as much crimp, and so when you dye them, the dye just saturates in this different kind of way, and it's really, really gorgeous. So I have been playing around with some of her yarn because I was just really dying to play around with it. This was one of her colorways. This is this beautiful green that you have here, right? And you might have heard a little bit about this Pace and Presence yarn from Sarah of Fiber Trek. Here you go, Tinky. She talked about it on one of her recent podcast episodes. Go on there, Tinky. What are you doing? Oh, she wants to play with the yarn. No. Go on. Oh, come on. Tink has gone off to greener pastures with her bone for a little while, so we'll see if we can finish this off. I was just talking about Jennifer Guyer's Pace and Presence yarn. Just this good thing I was showing you in the beginning, right? And so I swatched up a little bit of that green, one of the colors I received, and I just wanted you guys to be able to see it all swatched up. And the thing, I did this on size 4 needles. It's a DK weight, and I think it reads a little bit, it reads a little bit more like between a DK and a fingering weight to me. It's a 2-ply, but on the needles it feels a little bit more like a fingering weight yarn. But I knitted up on size 4s because that seemed like a good DK kind of sport weight way to go. And you can see that it knits up beautifully. It is just fine on the 4s in terms of fabric, I think. really nice production there. I did a little ribbing on the bottom and on the top so that you'd have it sit straight, and then I washed it. So this is washed, and I think you can see just how beautiful the stitch definition is. I think this would be gorgeous for, obviously for color work, because you can get the natural and you can do the color in smaller bumps like this. But I think lace would be gorgeous with this. And the next swatch I want to work up is a lace swatch to kind of play around and see what the fabric looks like with some lace mixed in. So we're back after some serious puppy wrangling. We'll see how this goes. I was talking about Jennifer's swatch, and no, you can sit with me though. You can sit with me. Puppy violence. Puppy violence. Puppy violence. No, no thank you. No, no thank you. No thank you. I'm working on gentle. 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 I know. We're being gentle. We're going to practice gentle. 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 There's a great video that's been making its way around YouTube where there's a guy who's sitting there with a little chihuahua, and he's like, man's best friend. You come home, you want to pet them. It's relaxing. It's good for all of you. It's such a calming experience. And every time I see that video, I think about Tinkus and her puppy mouthiness. Yes, Tinkus. We'll be back after these commercial breaks. Commercial break. Get the camera. Okay, commercial break is over. Tink is sleeping in my lap now. We'll see how long that lasts. So I think what I was telling you guys is that one of the things I love about Jennifer's new yarn that you don't see in the skein or in the ball is the amazing halo that it has. And I'm not sure you'll be able to see it in the light here. Maybe if I do it that way. But it has this kind of fuzziness to it, and it's really incredibly soft. And I always think for some of the long wools, if you don't spin them up properly, or if they're overspun, they can be kind of ropey. This is just, it's delicate and soft and really fun to knit with. You have to be a little bit careful with it. It's a 2-ply, so your needle can catch in between the plies a little bit if you're not careful. But I love knitting with it, and I just can't wait to do a little lace swatching to kind of play around with this. So again, this is Jennifer Guyor of Wild Lily Artisan Fibers' newest endeavor. This is Pace and Presence. And Jennifer, thanks so much for sending me a little special gift of your new maker project. I love it. And I think I'm going to make either a colorwork hat or some mittens, something like that. And with whatever's left over, I really want to make a shawl. So I can't decide. I'm torn. I'm torn with what I'm going to make. But I love it, and it's gorgeous. And if you have a chance to get your hands on some of Jennifer's beautiful fiber or her yarn, you should absolutely take the chance and go for it, because it's beautiful. And it produces really beautiful fabric. I love it. I love it. Tink is still sleeping, so that's good. And so the last two things for today. One is Kate from our Ravelry group asked me a question about sweater short rows. She said she'd finished her most recent, she's about to finish her most recent sweater. She's kind of working on the back of it, and she's wondering how I do add short rows to the backs of my sweaters so that they don't ride up. And I've talked about this in a couple episodes, that if you, some patterns for sweaters, if you don't have the back sitting a little bit higher than the front, you can get this kind of ride up little jokio, right? And so what you want is the back to sit higher so that when you have your front, it just kind of sits nice and low. Some designers, it seems like more and more designers nowadays are working short rows into their patterns in one way or another, especially in the backs, to add that little extra height that helps people with their, sleeping puppy, that helps people with their sweater construction. But if the design that you've chosen doesn't have short rows built in, there are a couple ways to add them. I would suggest reading, yes, there we go. Carol Feller's book on short rows, which is terrific in that she goes over a bunch of different kinds of short rows, because there's Japanese short rows and German short rows and so many different kinds, wraps and turns, and some of them don't use wraps and turns. German short rows don't use wraps and turns, and I really loved using German short rows for that reason. So you can read a bunch of, that's one resource to go to look and learn a little bit more about the different kinds of short rows you can add and how you can add them. But if you, even if your pattern doesn't call for short rows in the back and you have a sweater that's either, you know, a cardigan or a pullover, whether it's knit flat or in the round, in any of those cases you can add short rows to the back. Where it gets tricky is if you have a colorwork yoke or cables, and it's like full cables, because then it's a little tricky to add short rows. And that's partially why this no Oregon sweater that I'm working on has this extra panel that you add in stockinette in the back, because you can't add short rows to those cables very easily. But let's just assume you're working on a sweater that's mostly plain stockinette up toward the top. And the way that I do it is I try to go for just under the armpit up toward the shoulder blade region of the sweater. And all that you're doing is you're going to kind of designate an area. You're not, with short rows, you're not going to work the full row. That's the whole point. You're going to designate an area where you're going to create extra fabric, just enough to give the back a little bit of a lift in the center, kind of up towards your neck. So you want to pick a place that's, if you think about where your shoulder blades are, they're so far apart, right? So if you pick a place on one side and pick a place on the other and kind of mark them with some removable safety pins or something like that. As you're working your normal row, you know, across the back of the sweater with your right side facing you, right? You'd get to where you've designated, where you've hung your removable pin, and you'll do wrap and turn or German short rows or however it is that you're going to do it, so that you're turning your work and going back and creating an extra kind of hidden row. And then you'll get to that other safety pin and you'll turn again and you'll go back and you'll reach that wrap or whatever it is that you made on the side, and you'll go back. And I would add like 2 or 3 of these extra rows just in the back. It's all you need is just a couple extra rows to lift that back just enough so that right up around your the collar line, it's just a little bit higher than what's going on in the front. And then once you're done with your last short row, you'd be going back just like you know, on your right side, finishing it up. And when you get to your last wrap and turn, you grab it, turn it, whatever it is that you're doing, you just keep knitting. And all you've done is created just a tiny little bit of fabric that kind of raises up the back a little bit, just in that one region. And that's it. And you can add that to any sweater that's a kind of stockinette sweater. If you're doing a yoke, it gets a little tricky. Usually yokes will have some plain stockinette above the yoke in the back, and that's the place to add short rows. You could add them a little bit lower, but that would be weird. I don't think that would work out as well. So usually if you have a non-yoked part right up toward the top, you can just sneak 2 or 3 little short rows in, and it'll be enough to lift up your sweater. If you're doing cables, then you have to be a little more creative. And like I said, this sweater for Spencer has an extra kind of, because it's a saddle shoulder, it ends up having this extra panel that kind of sits right here that raises it up about 1 inch. And you could do your short rows much less than that. Even 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch would be enough to give you the effect that you're looking for. So I hope that helps, Kate. And I will hopefully do either a blog post or a more instructional video on that later on, because I feel like we might need more info on that. Yeah, let me know in the comments. That'd be great. Tink is completely and utterly passed out here. The last little segment that I have for today is giveaway extravaganza. And you guys have seen on the blog over the past couple of weeks, I've been featuring some really cool indie dyers. Last week it was Dynamixx Yarn, which is the mother-daughter duo, Mars and Adachi, creating really fun things and doing a lot of natural dyeing for their colorways. And you can go read their interview. That was really great. I have some yarn coming from them. They were generous enough to donate some yarn for a giveaway, so that will be happening in January. And then just this Saturday, I featured Three Waters Farm. Marianne did a nice interview about her work and colorways, and she donated a coupon code for a giveaway. So all you have to do to enter for that one, that's the active giveaway right now. All you have to do to enter that one is go to the Ravelry group. There's a thread for Three Waters Farms, and you can check out her Etsy shop and let us know, let her and me know which is your favorite colorway, and you could win that pretty awesome coupon code to give away to buy yourself a little something for the new year. And then the last giveaway that I have right now, at least for January, is coming from LBHandKnits, and that's Albina, and I'm doing a collaborative test knit with her during January and February. I'm just waiting for the yarns to arrive from Ireland, so I am so excited to get my hands on them, but the post is slow, as many of you guys know, with the holidays and the new year. No mail today, no mail tomorrow, so I'm hoping for next week. But there's going to be an awesome giveaway from her. It's a hat pattern and a skein of yarn, and from S Twist Wool, so keep your eyes open for that one. I will surely let you guys know when that giveaway is up and available. So lots of giveaways for January, lots of things going on, some wonderful indie dyers and designers out there that I'm so happy to sponsor on this podcast, and Jennifer Guyor being one of them. Her new yarn, I'm gonna go play with it now, especially because Tink is sleeping again. So it's a rare moment when puppies go to sleep, but they do. Here, I'll give you a little look at the lap right now. This is Tink, fast asleep. Oh, she got a little camera shy there for the moment. All right, guys, that is what I have for this episode. Coming up in the new year, I'm going to do a video on the hashtag fiber arts, which I think has been pretty great to see some podcasters doing, so that'll be a video in here somewhere. And as promised, we have our remake along gearing up, starting tomorrow, starting last week. It's going. If you want to check out the Ravelry thread for that and post a sweater that you want to work on, that would be awesome. We've already got 2 or 3, 4 or 5 sweaters in there, I think. So I'm going to be posting how-to videos throughout the year of 2018, how to remake one of your favorite sweaters that has fallen apart, fallen into disrepair, made out of yarn that you didn't like, something like that. So we'll do a how-to series on that. Lots of things to look forward to in the new year. I'm really excited, and I hope you guys are too. Thanks for coming, joining me, hanging out, and I will see you next time. Take care.